much for being with us, Yunus. Again, congratulations. You sent me the message that you have been accepted to LBS MFA, but I didn't have time to congratulate you. So well done. You deserve it. You're right.
Merci beaucoup.
But Yunus, first of all, to which programs have you been accepted finally?
So I've been accepted to the Master in Financial Analysis at London Business School, as well as the Master in Finance at the London School of Economics.
And that's it? Have you been accepted to others as well?
No, only the two.
Only these two, okay. Why an MFA? Is it because you want to work in an investment bank, in finance, because you believe that it's a very generalist degree? What is your approach?
Good question. Okay, so I already have a bachelor in management, which is why I thought that it wouldn't make too much sense to do the same thing again as a master. A similar curriculum, you only do it within a year, not within 3 years, and I already have a broad basis. And from the different topics that we covered in the bachelor program, ranging from marketing to finance to ethics to history to mathematics, to statistics, whatever. The finance part was the part that interested me the most from an academic standpoint. I also specialize in the finance part within the bachelor degree, and I think it just was the most fun. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, I have a rough idea, obviously, where I want to go in the future, especially after writing all these essays. However, I can also say that I also have no idea. So finance was the thing that I thought would be most tangible for me, and it would be the most tangible skill set that I can study. And again, I have fun financial analysis and thinking about investment strategies and doing calculations, and everything came together. And for me, this was the next logical step. Again, in general, I'm a generalist. I like to manage. I really liked my bachelor degree management. However, as I said, I already did it, and I wanted to specialize in one specific field in the broad field of management, which was finance for me.
Okay. Alors, basically, I have to say two things. That it's important. So, if you have a general management degree, an MIM, you can perfectly go to investment banking. You have to see that a lot of investment banks, by the way, they even take people after the bachelor. Okay. So, if you have a master, it's even better, and you don't need an MFA. Okay. Of course, you may need an MFA. Imagine that, for instance, you have studied engineering or political science, and you want to work in the bank. Yes, an MFA may be preferable. Okay. So now, of course, for Yunus has a BBA from ESCP, and of course, it was a bit of a repeat to go for another master in management, because basically you study basically the same. So there was no reason for him to do an MIM, so he could specialize. So a lot of the students who have already completed the BBA, we advise them either MIF or Master in Business Analytics. Okay, the two are good. Okay, what has been your exposure to finance so far? So basically, you told me that you have studied finance at ESCP. Do you have also some professional exposure to finance?
So I have some career exposure to finance for sure. So I've done, I mean, the field of finance, again, is exceptionally broad. I've conducted an internship in venture capital at the agricultural company. So they're investing in little startups, and I was there for 2 months, 2 years ago during the Corona crisis, which I found interesting. So in general, the idea of investing into companies in early stages or ideas is interesting to me. Because, I mean, how do you do the forecast? It's difficult. You really actually have to get to know the people. You have to, like the idea, maybe with your own resources, in that case, big agro traders. So they do have network, for example. So can the network help the startup grow, for example? So these kind of strategic ideas, points were interesting to me. So venture capitalism could for sure be one thing that I'd like to do in the future. So this is my first exposure. I've also conducted a internship in the bank. This was last year. I didn't like that one too much because I was doing, I was in the credit department. So we were handing out credits so the department is handing out credits to projects. Found it a bit dull, to be honest. But I was also exposed to the mergers and acquisitions department because I had a friend there within the bank. So he took me in every week. I was there for 2, 3, 4 hours, and I liked what they were doing because it's also a lot of research. I mean, you do learn on the one hand the technical part. You learn how to set up a cash flow model. You know how to set up a cash flow analysis. So you learn hard skills, but on the other hand, you also do macroeconomic analysis. You do trend analysis. You learn a lot about different industries, and I'm someone who likes to learn a lot. So this could have been something interesting for me, which is why I focused on this merger and acquisition part in my application, even though I didn't really have experience in the field yet. But I'm going to be doing an M&A internship this summer. Again, also in a corporate, in an agri company. I will be part of the company for 2 months, and they will be acquiring another company, and I will be part of the due diligence process and learn how this M&A process works. So this is my career.
Basically, so maybe it's time to tell us more about yourself. So tell me who you are, etc. In the same way as you have introduced yourself to LBS. Go ahead.
Okay, so who am I? So I'm Yunus. I am 22 years old. I grew up in Vienna, which is the capital of Austria. I've lived here for 18 years, and I attended a French high school here, so I have a baccalaureate.
Which means that when I speak to Yunus, most of the time we speak French together. Huh?
Yeah, we try to speak.
It happened that we have our training sessions in French. And I did not even realize his French is so good, and we were switching to French easily. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So exactly. So I have my baccalaureate, even though my parents don't speak French. My mom is Turkish and my father is German, and which is why I attended an international school, because for my parents it just made sense so that I grew up in an open-minded environment. And for me, I think it was a perfect decision. I learned another language, and it's also really opened my mind to actually go outside of Austria. So for me, it was always clear that I wanted to go outside of Vienna and to study in another country. It was always clear to me, which is why I chose to study at ESCP. I thought it was the perfect program because it was a super international program. So it was in 3 countries in 3 years. So I studied in London, in Paris, and in Berlin. And I would say, I mean, that this is one of the main aspects that, for example, London Business School looked at. So they really look for international students, and they really market the fact that they are an international school, and that for them one of the most important things is internationalism. And my application, we really focused on that. So we focused on the fact that I have an international family background, Turkish mother, German father, grew up in Austria, so 3 different countries. I always had this in my private life. I always had to deal with cross-cultural conflicts, I would say, or situations. Then my academics, so I worked, so I have a French baccalaureate, and I studied abroad in different countries, and also work experience. I worked in London, I worked in Germany, I worked in Austria. This is main part of my profile, is that I am super international, and I think it was really helpful in my application. For the academics, I really wouldn't say that I'm a stellar student. I'm good, for sure. You have to have a good grades to be able to attend good schools, obviously, but I don't have a 750 GMAT or whatever. Okay, so I think I had 640 or so, and still works. So you just have to try to sell yourself properly, and have some help. Obviously, you can't do it alone. And yeah.
And that's also something that yes, has been my first push, is that when we met, you were not very ambitious. What did you have in mind when we met? Remember, what did you have in mind? Stockholm School of Economics. What was it?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not ambitious. I would formulate it another way. I'm very German, so I like to hedge my bets, and I'm a realist. I am a realist, I would say, and which is why I told you, well, yeah, okay, so my dream would be London School of Economics, London Business School. Dream is always a big word, so it was my goal. For me, it was the highest.
But your dream was more LSE when we met. You wanted to do study economics at LSE or Stockholm School of Economics. Remember?
Yeah, exactly.
But Stockholm and LSE, and mainly Stockholm, by the way. Plus, I forgot the name, by the way.
Yeah, because I think it was mainly Stockholm, because I was like, yeah, I can't get into the others anyways. But yeah, exactly. So Hubert opened my mind a little bit. He was like, we'll try anyways, we'll do our best, and see there, it worked. Stockholm didn't take me in the end. But
strangely enough, yeah, that's right.
But yeah, the London schools took me, and they were my first choice. So I mean, in the end, everything worked out perfectly.
So yes, because it's something important that we have to see, and maybe Maj could have a question. Is that yes, aim for the best, and strangely enough, so-called school of economics, which is not that good, okay, did not take him when LBS or LSE took you. Maj, you have a question for Yunus. By the way, you have German origin as well, because you both Slovenian and Germans. Maj?
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
So Maj is my
Hello.
student. Okay, go ahead, Maj. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to generally ask you how would you describe your interview for London Business School, and what do you think was the most important during that?
It's easily answered, to be honest. So London Business School. So the interviewee focused mainly on personal questions. So we also prepared for finance specific questions, but I didn't need it. I mean, but to be honest, I mean, with Hubert, you have to prepare, like, I don't know, he's like, yeah, here you have 100 questions prepared. I was like, bro, I don't have this time, but I still did it. So we prepared for 100 questions. I have answers for every single one of them. We went through it 3 times. And in the end, the interview, so I had an answer for everything. It went out like a gun, to be honest. I really didn't have to think. It was mainly personal based. So it was mainly, who are you? Where do you come from? Why do you want to do master in financial analysis? Why London? Why LBS? And then, how do you deal with a stressful situation was a question. Give an example. How do you deal with criticism? What kind of criticism did you get in your life? Again, criticism is a bit difficult, so I worked around it, and I was like, yeah, this is how I got feedback. But yeah, it was mainly about myself.
So you see, what you have to see, Maj, is that it happens that they ask you technical questions. So he was lucky that he didn't get any technical questions. By the way, when I was preparing you, Yunus, I was also preparing students for MIT. And MIT is even worse than that, because you have technical questions, you have a math exam, and you have a computer exam. So of course, so me, I was more in the MIT mood at that time, because there are many applying for MIT, Sloan, the master in finance. And from experience, I know that normally they ask you question in finance. I mean that since Yunus is an ESCP graduate, he studied finance, he also had internship in the finance field. They thought, or maybe he knows. So they asked him for personal questions. Okay. Why did you at the end you could have chosen LSE, or why did you pick up LBS? Of course, the question seems a bit stupid. Okay. But there are other schools. Why London? Why LBS?
First of all, why London? I had the chance to have lived in 4 different cities in my young life. I mean, I'm 22, but I already lived in London for a year during my ESCP studies, and I would say it was the best time for me. I do have friends in London, and I really wanted to go back to London. So this is why I wanted to go to London. It seems a little bit like a luxury problem when you do LBS or do LSE. I mean, both are extremely cool. But when I got accepted to both, I looked at it from another perspective. I looked at it from a student perspective. So I can choose now which one am I going to choose, which one fits better to me. And again, I'm no genius. I am good in school. I work hard for sure, but I am not that theoretical. I would say my strength lies in the personal. So in the face-to-face, I mean, I get along well with people. I like to meet new people. I love meeting new people. I'm not someone who sits in a cubicle all day and does little math equations. No, I really like to go out there, meet people, make new connections, make new friends, make experiences. And from what I heard from current Master in Finance students at London School of Economics, as well as current MFA students at LBS, is that when you go to London School of Economics, I mean, you always have to have a great time management, but you work 90% of the time on theoretical concepts that are maybe not even necessary to learn. They really, they let you study. They let you study like crazy. You don't really have time for other things. They don't even, honestly, they told me we're nearly done with our studies, we don't even have a job yet because they can't focus on it because they have so much to do for university. And it seems a bit to me that London School of Economics tries to prepare their students for maybe a PhD or a research career, whereas, I mean, it seems to me, I am not sure, but whereas London Business School is more practical oriented. So they really have a high focus on the fact that you find a job during the year. It's not that hard, apparently. And again, it's more socializing. They have a really just a higher focus on the practical as well, on the peer-to-peer, getting to know people in the industry, having events with your peers from the other programs. This is again, apparently it's at London School of Economics. It's such a big school, apparently, that you, especially in 9 months, it's really difficult to get to know people from other courses. Again, you don't really have the time. You can go to a society, but you really have to study for your own stuff as well. So you're only with the peers from your group, which is not, I don't know. I mean, I want to get to know people. If I go to LSE, I want to get to know people from a philosophy master, from an economics master. I want to get to know other people. And they tell me you don't have the time for it. You have to study. You just have to study. London Business School is a bit different. It's just a business school, so you only have 4 courses. You do a lot with the MIMS, so you get to know, you already have 400 people that you are with all the time. And also really important is that they have executive masters, which means that you have classes with industry professionals that worked for already 10 years, which you don't have at London School of Economics. So these are the reasons why I chose London Business School in the end.
You see, it's interesting, Yunus, because we spoke to Lisa Duke, who is now Dr. Lisa Duke, by the way, meanwhile, and she created the masters at LBS. And when we interviewed her, so by the way, our interview is on my YouTube channel, I asked her why LBS did so and what LBS was expecting, and she told me, when you have an LBS degree, you know that you have top academics. Of course, you have an incredible network, and you have a very good career center, because they want their programs to be ranked high, and they know that the networking, the job postmasters, the quality of the experience are keys in ranking. So they know basically they want their program to be to be ranked in the top 5, which is what they have roughly, and they do so by making sure that the quality is there, and that's exactly what you have mentioned. And of course, when you want to work in finance, LBS is the right place, because as you know, probably LBS itself is half of the finance of the rest of Europe, probably. Okay. Maximilian from France, Switzerland, who also wants to go for a master's in finance. You have a question to ask to Yunus, Maximilian?
Hi, good afternoon. Actually, I don't have a question because he already answered my question. So, I was willing to ask if it was best to choose a master in finance at LBS or at LSE, but it seemed that the difference is quite clear.
Okay. Now, basically, guys, don't forget that this year we are focusing, and we had very good results this year already in the US, because we have over 100 people accepted to top US business schools. And now I was talking about this to Julie Knafo from France. And we were saying that now we want to send people to MIT Sloan, to Columbia. So we had this year, we had seen accepted to Columbia, to NYU, to MIT Sloan. So now we're trying to basically use Image to send our students. We basically, now this year, my top finance applicants, I will choose probably NYU, Columbia, MIT, and HEC, ESSEC, LBS. You see, Yunus, I will change my approach now. I will say, okay, let's have a more global approach. That's what I will do. So now, for instance, if we were to work together now, we'll probably include NYU. Okay, why not? Why not at the same time? Because don't forget that Yunus, he has Turkish origins. He spent some time in Europe. Why not go in the US? And as you know, for instance, the NYU program, that's for you also, Julie, that you have to consider, is that you have 6 months in New York and 6 months in Shanghai. So really, when you want to be international, say, imagine, it's incredible. Maj, you have questions? Yeah, Maj?
I just
Yeah.
to ask you why, for instance, did you consider HEC Paris, or why did you then decide for London, except for the reasons that, or was it purely the reason that you mentioned before, that you had friends in London and you really wanted to go there?
It has another reason as well. I really didn't want to stay in the French system. I mean, even though I studied in different countries, whatever, I was always in the same French system. As I said, I went to Lycée Français de Vienne, so I have a baccalaureate. Then somehow I ended up in a French school again for my bachelor, even though it was in English, but it still was the French system. So I really wanted to do something else. So HEC was out of the question for me. I always was, yeah, do HEC. I was like, no, I don't want
to. That's unfortunate, huh? Okay, no HEC. But Maj wants to go to HEC. Maj is somehow in the French system because he's in Lausanne, which is somehow French, but he wants to remain in the French system. Yes, you have to see, Maj, that some people, some people want the ranking, but what I want to say is that whether you get LSE, Imperial, Warwick, LBS, HEC, ESSEC, Oxford, EDEC, or Schema, basically it's the same. Basically, you have interviews, you have the same interviews, so the competition is the same, except that when you study at LBS, you can say the networking advantages, the quality of the career center, I'm a bit better prepared. But that's it. At the end, you have the same interviews. Okay. So, Pranali, you have a question for us, Pranali.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to ask you, what is your take on the course of Masters of Management from LBS? Because now that you have studied from the school and you might have quite a few friends who have taken Masters in Management. So what is your take on that course? Considering the job opportunities as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I haven't started yet. I'm currently in a gap year. I'm doing my civil service in Austria, which is why I don't really have a take on it, to be honest.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I can't answer that, to be honest.
No, but honestly, so what I want to say, you imagine that we have quite a few students who go for the MIM. But I would say that my students who go for the MIM, some work in marketing, many work for Amazon, others in consulting, Ben, BCG, McKinsey, or IBM, Strategy and Co., and others in finance. So we say that basically what I want to say is that whether when Yunus is going to apply or got accepted to the or Ariane, okay, but when they will apply to Goldman Sachs, they will have the same interview and they will not be discriminated because one comes from the MFA, the other one comes from the MIM. And you see what I do usually, Pranil, with my students. Few of my students, Yunus is the same idea, probably Yunus will become an entrepreneur at some stage, want to focus on finance only, okay? Since they want to go on the buy side, so basically private equity, for instance, okay? So but what I say after that, we will say, look, I want to do an MIM because I want to go into investment banking, but then I want to manage my own private equity fund, and I believe it's better that I have, okay. The fact is that Yunus, it was a different story. He already has an MIM. The BBA covers all MIM courses, so it doesn't make sense. Okay. By the way, Yunus could also start to work. By the way, you're going to work in M&A this summer. So you have to see. Me, I have a son who worked for JP Morgan, and he told me that the first 3 months you have a training. So the training that you have the first 3 months, given the intensity of the training, it's like a master in finance. Okay. And my son went to ESCP. But he told me that he has people who have studied anthropology, others philosophy, others mathematics, others engineering, others history. So basically, they consider that you know nothing, okay, and that they are going to train you, okay. So, but of course, how can you manage that? Me, for instance, I train students past the recruitment, the assessment center. And I find it's very difficult when you have no knowledge. How can you pass such exams, such assessment, when you have studied philosophy only? It's very surprised. Now, you know, it's not easy, but at the same time, if you decide to study that the last year and just to study finance and economics on your own, maybe you can make it, huh? Okay. So it's that's something that really depends. But of course, you see, Prani, if you don't know what you want to do, go for a 2-year master in management in finance. Okay, because they will leave you time, you have a gap year. Okay, if Yunus, he knows what he wants to do. Right after the masters, he will be in finance. It can be private equity, can be M&A, department of a company, okay, or it can be an IB. Okay, IB is the best because of course that's where they train you best in IBs. Okay, maybe so before you ask, there is a new student. Where is Julie? She's not here. She left. Julie Nafo. No, I wanted her to. Okay, she left. Alors, basically, Sohab from Pakistan. Go ahead, Sohab, with our student.
Thank you, Dr. Hubert. And congratulations, Yunus, on getting into the program at LBS. My question is that what would you suggest to someone who's pursuing a master's in finance, who doesn't have a background in finance? So I did my bachelor's in political science. I did end up working for a bank, but I don't see myself as an expert in finance. But I do want to pursue finance after doing my master's. So what is your take on that? I don't know exactly where you did your bachelor's from, but I'd like to have your take on it.
Okay. So let me rephrase your
So
question.
basically, the question, Yunus, is that you think that someone with a background in political science can still get a master in finance. It's more difficult. Yeah, it's more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be that it's more difficult. It depends a bit if you have an affinity for numbers or not. I mean, but in the end, you can study for whatever you like. So let me put it this way. I'm no expert in finance either. Just because I had a couple of courses, okay, I have a head start, I would say. It's the only thing. In the end, if you like finance, if you see yourself working in finance, and again, finance is not just crunching the numbers. You can, as Hubert said, if you're on the buy side, okay, in the first years, you might have to crunch some numbers, fine. But afterwards, I mean, you have the face-to-face. You are buying companies, you are selling companies. You have to be good with the people. That's what I think. And this is, I think, where my
it takes time before you reach there, huh?
It takes time.
More than 2-3 years.
Yeah, it takes time for sure.
Yeah,
But this is, I think, where my strength is going to play out. What I want to say is, I don't have an insane strength in creating Excel sheets and doing numbers. I have fun doing it, but not too much. I don't have to do it. So my answer would be very simple. It doesn't. I mean, I just have a head start. It's the only thing, because I have a master in management. I already had a couple of finance courses, but I know that when you do MFA, there are only, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 30% have a bachelor in management. The rest have other things, have engineering, for example, and they still do it. So, which means that the program or the program creators know about this, and I'm sure that they have created the program according to this fact that not everyone has finance experience from before. I'm sure you're going to learn everything you need to know in the master, and you don't necessarily have to have prior experience. And you said you were already in the bank, so you must have prior experience. You can also take courses. If you don't feel ready, you can do a certificate. But I'm sure that if you start work normally during the master in financial analysis, it should be fine. It's going to be great. That's what I think.
So yes, so what I want to say is that, yes, in this type of masters, and you see with Yunus, basically when he completed the application, the questions were not technical. They were about him, about his motivation, about his life, okay? And then when he had the interview, it was not even technical. Probably, if it were you, Sohab, they would probably ask you for more technical questions. So, but there are 50 questions to know, okay? And if you don't know some of them, it's not an issue. You will understand that. But what they want to see is that they want to make sure that you have an interest for the field and that you have some knowledge, okay? But for instance, it happens to me that at HEC, you see, the interview is very technical. So there are few questions and questions and questions up to the stage where you cannot answer, okay? But all my students, they failed somehow the HEC because they told me after 15 minutes, I could not answer the question. They say, no, it's not that you could not answer, okay, that you are bad. They have tested your knowledge. And for someone who is 19 or 20 years old, you're already pretty knowledgeable. And who's not an investment banker, it's already not bad. So they want to test. It's like me, when you have the GMAT with me, you know, we have questions, and little by little, I will give you more difficult questions. It's not because you failed the 750 level question that you're bad. It's simply, 740 is your level, and it's already not bad. Huh? You understand? So, and you have a lot of people, for instance, Macron, the French president, he studied philosophy and then political science, and he was a major banker at Rothschild. He was one of the top 20. He doesn't even have a master in anything. He had studied political science and philosophy. He had a master in political science and a master in philosophy. Okay, what I had before I go to Harvard, I have the same type of training as him. It's pretty common. We see SOAP. Okay. Luca has a question for us. So Luca XLXX. Okay, so he's not a robot, I'm sure. So Luca, tell us what is your question. So you say good afternoon. What questions have you got for us? So I saw that someone else had a question. So Maj, you had another question for us. Maj?
No, it's been all clear for me. Thank you.
Alors, basically, Maximilian. Yes, here's another question. Maximilian. You see the French, they ask questions. Huh? Allez, Maximilian, go ahead.
Yes, actually, I do have a question. Can you give us kind of an insight of your roadway to LBS? How long have you been preparing to the DMAT? How long for the IELTS? I don't know if you have taken it. And like, how long have you been looking to your application? I mean by that, with your cover letters and recommendation letters?
Good question. So when have I started? Okay, so I'm gonna put it this way. A year, because not necessarily because I needed the year, more because it's really difficult when you're on your own. That was my experience. Okay, I didn't start with Hubert. I got to know Hubert in June last year, but I started with the GMAT in January last year. And I didn't prepare properly for it. I mean, because I didn't. It was so overwhelming. Look, I come from a French background. It's always about these long mathematical questions. When you have a problem, you have a half an hour to solve it, and you get points for the way and everything. I have never, ever in my entire life done multiple choice in 2 minutes. I hated it. Really wasn't my thing, and I haven't started to study for it properly. I mean, I did 1 or 2 different courses, but that wasn't really for me. I would have needed someone face to face on my side who really knows my strengths and weaknesses and who helps me with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it also costs, obviously, if you have a coach like this. I haven't had one in the beginning, okay? Which is why it took me a year. But I'm going to tell you my experience, and then I'm going to try to say how I would do it differently. So I started in January. I had my bachelor degree going on as well. So I was also studying for my courses during the day. So I had coursework all day, and then I was trying to do 2 to 3 hours every day of this GMAT course. I was doing target test prep, if you know it, I don't know. I didn't like it, so I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, I was doing this until June. And then in June, I think I took the GMAT. And I didn't start with Hubert earlier because I had in my mind, let me finish the GMAT and let me do the rest afterwards. Don't have to do it that way necessarily. You can do all together. Saves a lot of time. So until June, I took it. I had 540 and I studied for 6 months. Okay, so you see that I didn't study properly. And then I got to know Hubert, and we started to work on the cover letters as well. So I had summer internship. I was doing the GMAT, and I was getting to know Hubert, so I was doing the cover letters. Right. So I did 2 more months of GMAT. I took it again, end of August. Then there I had the 640, and I left it at the 640. And I started to only do the cover letters with Hubert after this. So we already had some preparation during the 2 months. So as you can see, it is no problem to work, do the GMAT, and also do the cover letters. You just have to, have good time management. That's what I would say. And then in September, October, November, December, we finished all the applications and we sent them out. So that's why it took me about a year. If you have help from the beginning onwards, also with the GMAT, it shouldn't take you a year. It should take you 6 months. It depends also how good you are in mathematics, how good you understand these things, and how good you can solve these 2-minute exercises. I mean, I have friends who have 730 and studied for 2 months. I'm not someone who can do that, or I would only have to do this all the time, and I don't want to. So this is my journey, right? So, but the main months were the 6 months from August onwards, with where I started with Hubert. And in hindsight, I would say with me working, doing the GMAT, doing the cover letters, having a personal life, if you can afford it, definitely take help. I think it pays off, because you cannot know everything. I saved so much time just by Hubert giving me the outlines for everything. Otherwise, I would have have to spend hours finding out how to properly write the essay. Is it even right? I wouldn't even know about it. So he gave me the outlines. He told me, okay, this school, they look at these specific points. This school, they look at these other points. And then I knew exactly what I was going to write. Wrote it. We checked it, we iterated 2 or 3 times, then we send it to the editor so that the English is also fine. Perfect. I mean, you need this help, and I will always take help in the future because it just saves you a lot of time and energy. And even though it might be a little bit expensive, but you save time, so you can use that time to do something that creates other value. And you can, for example, I don't know, learn about investing, and then you can make money again. In the end, if you want to do MFA, you were going to be investing anyway. So yeah. That's my journey. And in hindsight, I would, as I said, take someone that helps me from the beginning onwards. And I would probably do this also for my applications for the job. I haven't started to do that yet, but I'm gonna seek help for sure as well there.
No. Yeah, but that's something
Thank you very much.
that is important. Maj knows that as well, Maximilian. So the idea that we try to give a global program with GMAT courses, TOEFL, and application, and we believe it's important. And we also, and I don't know if you took advantage of that, Yunus, but we also organize meeting with schools. You did not attend the meeting with schools because really it was not the right timing, but like 3 times a year, it's Xenia who does that. So we invite LBS, HEC, ESSEC, ESCP, IEC, ESADE, Bocconi, VAU, St. Gallen, Julie, and next year we will also invite NYU, MIT, and Columbia, and they come to visit our students. And this year we'll create also an account system. So someone like, for instance, Yunus, starting next year, he will complete his application, he will receive a score, and then LBS or HEC will receive that we have an interesting student, okay, and they will start to check his background, and maybe we'll have an interview. Imagine if you already have an interview with HEC that say, okay, we like your profile, you should apply, you feel so much more confident, okay? And by the way, if you have such profile, you could perfectly write your application and say to HEC, can you please have a look at my application? You could do that, okay? And tell me what you think about it, okay? For instance, Interior has such a service. So when you apply, they also check your personal statement and they say, improve this, improve that. So you can imagine you are going to be able to find a way now where you have not only GMAT and application, but also involvement of the school. Okay, so it means that the HEC woman had read my application already because it's on the portal, and she likes it. She told me to change this and that. Imagine, so when you arrive, it's already assessed by HEC or by LSE by your dream school. So it's a big thing.
I actually have another tip that I just thought about. And because they told me this in the interviewer at London Business School told me this in the end, because I asked them, okay, can you give me some feedback about my application? What he told me was basically he really appreciated the fact that I actually used this service that Hubert was just talking about. So you can send your CV to the London Business School, and then they're gonna check it, and then they actually also have might have a call with you, right? So you can do this before you apply, and then they're gonna tell you if your profile is suitable for the Master in Finance or the Master in Management or not. I did that, I talked to them. So what he told me is, and I also attended some of their events, their fairs, where they were talking about what they look at, what they appreciate, which is also why I knew what they look at and what they appreciate, right? And they really, they tracked that somehow. Because he told me in the end, one of the reasons why we see that you're really interested, I don't know, I mean, otherwise probably wouldn't have said it. He told me is that because you attended these events, you sent us your CV, you made initial contact. We weren't just a school on your paper. You really, we felt like you got to know us. You want to get to know us. He told me this in the end of the interview. So that's something that he appreciated, I think.
Yeah, it's very true what you're saying, Yunus, is that schools, they have like a criteria. So basically they have 6 criteria. If you want to write them, by the way, if you're there, first is intellectual and academic abilities. So the GMAT, the grades, the school. Imagine that you went to Oxford, you have good grades, but a relatively low GMAT, they will say, okay, the guy is still a good student. Okay. Then international exposure, then interest in the field. Okay, if you want to work in investment banking, show that you have interest in finance. If you only internship as a tennis coach, they will say you work as a tennis coach and you're interested in finance. Please tell me where all that comes from. Okay. Then leadership. They want to shape people who have leadership. Then your contribution to the school. What will you bring to the school? Okay. And the right fit. So of course, if you, I don't know, if you say I want to do the MFA, but my objective in life is to create a restaurant, they will say I don't see the point between it's more like entrepreneurship. Okay, but you can always explain, by the way, and that you want to do an MFA. So they have 6 criteria. And I don't know if you have read the post that I wrote yesterday. Have you read it, Maj? I wrote a post about Kautar. No, he left already. Have you read the post about Kautar?
Yeah, no.
Basically, yesterday, I have a student who got accepted to Harvard Business School with a 660. Okay, it's not very high, it's 660. And I explained to in the post that according to me, the reason why they chose her, and you're right, Yunus, is that first, she wants to work in social entrepreneurship, and she's already into social entrepreneurship, but at a low level. So she wants to go back to Morocco and develop social housing, and she's already in this field in France. Second of all, when she wrote her essay, she wrote her own story. And even though I wanted to write something else, she didn't write what I advised her to write. Okay, basically, she explained that she arrived in France and she experienced racism, which is very strange to say that when you apply for Harvard, but obviously it works. So I said, look, at some stage I said, well, it's your story, okay? And you want to write your story. By the way, Harvard is the only school that she got. And last, she has networked. And I agree with you, Yunus, that's something that I advise. That's why we organize all these events, all these meetings with schools as well, because she attended many events, etc. By the way, when I was preparing the GMAT with her, I said, look, you have 660, don't go to all these events, you have to work on the GMAT, you want to go to Harvard, 660 is not enough. And finally, the girl, she told me, it's fine, okay? And basically, probably she met people, I don't know who she met at these events, but she went to the Forbes meeting, she attended Harvard meeting, other MBA meeting, etc. And at the end, like you, she had been red flagged, so they knew that she would apply. So it's something very important. So when people tell me I have to work on my application, yes, I have to work on my profile, yes, and I also have to build a network. Okay, you know, the first student that I had, his name was Guy Kamley. Okay, he has become a close friend. We're roughly the same age. 52 is 51. UCLA with no work experience and a 640 GMAT. Okay, UCLA MBA. Okay. What he did, he spent 3 months at UCLA and he went to their office and to the campus every day for 3 months. After that, he said, okay, you like the school? Understand? Okay. Well, imagine that Yunus has spent just 1 week at LBS to attend events, to be at some class, to know students, to meet, etc. 1 week would have been incredible. You match, for instance, when you spend 1 week in Dubai, could have spent 1 week in London, and it would have brought a lot as well. Huh? For instance, if you want to take 1 week, you told me that you have 1 week vacation in this September, this summer, go there and get to know people. It's a very good investment. That's the best possible holidays that you can have. And plus, if you love this school, go there. If you want to go to America, go visit American campuses are incredible places to be. Really, it's not Europe. Okay. Cedric Chilo, you have a question for us, Cedric. What is your question?
Yes, I've got a question. Can you also see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. So okay, I've got 2 questions for Yunus. And first of all, I want to describe my situation since I see some, let's say, prevalence between us. So for example, my situation, I'm pretty strong in terms of career and practical experience. So for example, I've done already 2 streamings, and I'm currently also doing my second investment internship in a boutique in Frankfurt. However, by investing so much time in internships and interviews, I've somehow, let's say, neglected the academic perspective more and more, and I'm not in the top 20% of my class anymore. So my question for Yunus is, was that something similar for you? And would you say that that one can compensate weaker academic performance with a very good CV from a career perspective?
Good question. So what do I think about this? Are you going to do the GMAT as well?
Pardon?
Are you going to do the GMAT?
Yes. I'm going to.
Okay. I mean, in the end, because I don't know if you encompass the GMAT in your academic, but they look at professional experience, they look at your GMAT, they look at your your grades at university, and then all the other things that you mentioned as well. So what I want to say by this, they have a little chart and they look at 10 different things. You can obviously compensate. However, I believe that if there is something that really isn't that, you have to have a minimum level, I would say. They require a minimum level somewhere. But you can definitely compensate the level. I'm going to give you my specific example. My the weak part of my own application is definitely the GMAT. I think I have the worst GMAT in the entire cohort with 640. I mean, got to know some of the people. They have 750, 730. I was like, bro, okay,
Yeah,
you guys are good in the GMAT. But I was good at university, so I do have Dean's List. I wasn't, I think, in the top 7% or so. So I was good at university, however, I wasn't good in the GMAT. But again, I have other good fits. Internationalism, I went to the school. So to briefly answer your question, absolutely you can compensate, but there has to be something else that stands out, I would say. And the thing I think that stood out with me, and that's what I told me, it's the other thing that he told me in the feedback after the interview. It was really so, you took the time to get to know us. We really felt that you wanted to be here. And the second thing is, you are the perfect fit because you are so international. So this is the second thing that stood out. So something has to stand out to compensate.
And the fact that you also come from ESCP, so you come from a good school, so they say you went to a good school, you had decent grade, so we know that you can follow such programs. Huh?
So
basically,
if your professional stands out, then it's good.
Okay. So basically, Cedric, yes, you need a good GMAT. If your grades are relatively low, remember what I told you? I told you they will consider your intellectual and academic skills. Huh? Okay. Me before going to Harvard, I was a tennis player. Okay. So, but I got 800. Okay. That's why they took me. So basically, that's the thing. Huh? You understand? So basically, you can compensate through a good GMAT. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
You get 800, but at least the 700. So, and basically, I see that you're pretty international because are you German? Where are you from? You're German? You seem to have a German accent.
Yes, I am German. My brother is from Togo and have also done internships in France. So, yeah.
Yeah. The accent.
And I want to go to London, obviously.
And you speak French. If your mother is from Togo, she probably speaks French.
Oui, je sais parler français.
Yeah. So like not as good as Yunus, but you're good. So basically, what I want to say, Cedric, is that yes, all that's going to help you. Yes, get a good GMAT. You know, the advantage of that, it's not like a contest. You know, you have they take into consideration the six pointers, okay, and you can compensate one that is weaker by another one. That's what. But of course, you have to contact LBS. You have to be active when they come to your city. Meet them. Go visit London. For instance, there's something that we don't know. Okay, that I didn't say to you, Yunus, but something that we could have done is that it's good sometimes to have a sort of internal recommendation. Okay, me, for instance, that's what I did when I went to Harvard. I didn't do the MBA, I did the PhD, but I went there, and I remember I didn't know anything, and I said to a guy, "Could you help me?" Okay, and the guy said, one of the students there said, "I will write an internal recommendation for you." Okay, and that helps a lot as well. Okay. Of course, if you have also professors who have taught at LBS or LSE, HEC, it's a big plus. Huh? So basically, everything, all these things are not said, okay, but they are also important. Contact with the school, internal recommendations, building a profile that fits. Basically, what I want to say is that a school that is as selective as LBS. How many do they take? 80 in the program? How many will it be? Like 80 in the MFA? It's about
I think 140.
140, 1,000 applicants. Okay, so imagine one out of 7. Okay, so when you have 1 out of 7, you know, basically your basic skills are not enough. You have to stand out in a way or another. But of course, the fact that you're German, you have maybe a binationality that can also help. Of course, when I met Yunus, he told me about his profile. I said, "What? It's an interesting profile. Probably would have been easier in an MIM program because they value this type of thing even more so." Okay, but it was enough. Okay. Someone has questions, maybe.
Okay, so I've got a second question for Yunus.
One question, of course, Cedric.
Yeah. Okay. So when I've summarized it correctly, I've seen that MBA Center has helped you by providing you with the 100 questions for the interviews, with the cover letters, the GMAT prep, which you do on the weekend, and then also
he prepared on his own,
give you the information to attend networking events with business
so
schools.
basically, Cedric, he prepared the GMAT on his own. When I met Yunus, he had already prepared the GMAT. You understand? And what he said, I see his reason is that he would have made his job much easier if we had prepared together. But he had already prepared that. I met him 6 months after he started his preparation. You see? Cedric.
So what was the question?
So the question was what needed this company? Yeah, go ahead, Cedric.
So yes, when I summarized it correctly, then it was the interviews, the 100 questions, the cover letters, the GMAT prep, and then also attending the networking events, which then MBA Center has given you. Is that correctly, or
yeah? Okay, I can answer.
Do you want to add something else?
Yeah, no, but I can answer it because I'll answer that. So as I said before, and I'm also saying it to anybody who is willing to do something like this, again, who can afford it as well. I cannot say that everyone can afford something like this, but take the help for sure. Okay, it really helped me with my time. Now, what did I do with him? The GMAT I did it on my own. I would have saved 6 months of my life. I would have done it with Hubert. Would have been great. We went through the CV together. We went through the cover letters together. He gave me the outline but then school specific outline. Okay, that's also important to say. It's just one outline and then go for it. No, every school has a different approach. You need to either write 500 words, you need to write 2 pages. LSE looks at the academics. LBS has 11 other questions that you need to answer, 300 words per question. Everything is different, and and the cool thing is, I mean, it's his job. He knows for each school what type of question it is, and he has a specific outline for all of them. Okay, and then something else that is important, which I think stood out as well, and we didn't mention that, is the reference letters. Don't forget that you have to submit either 1 or 2 reference letters. Again, I would have never thought of this. I would have just said, yeah, you are my reference, write it for me. No, I wrote the reference letters. So I prepared them, and then I send them to the references, and they, I know for a fact that they didn't take everything that I wrote in. They did their own reference letter. But in the end, they really knew what they were going to write into it. So Hubert prepared that with me as well, the reference letters. Then the GMAT, you could have done it, yes. I could have done it with him. Then you could have attended the events. I didn't do that as well. It wasn't really in the time frame. And then not just 100 questions for the interview. I mean, you need to understand that I met him every 2 weeks for at least an hour. Okay, so every time I needed help, so we have 1 hour one-on-one. That's also important to know. So it's just not just the outline. Then I write the essay, I send it to him, he looks at it, we have a call, talk about it. Yunus, this is bullshit, you have to write it again. Okay, sorry, I'm writing it again. So that's, he takes his time as well. Okay, this is important as well. And then it didn't just give me the 100 questions, so I gave them to me. I prepared all of them. I remember for the finance specific questions, it was a Yunus, you have to study finance. This is not right what you're saying. I didn't know how to explain a balance sheet back in the day because I haven't done it for 6 months and I just didn't look at it anymore. So I was caught a little bit off guard. Okay, as you can see, you don't have to be genius to really achieve these things, right? He helped me with that as well. And then we had 3 iterations. We prepared the interview 3 times. Okay, so I had the 100 questions. Every time we had the meeting, he asked me other questions. Okay, Yunus, so what is this? What is this? What is this? Every time an hour. So this is also important. So this one-to-one. It's just you really have a coach. You're not in a 30 people class. You have a coach tailored to your needs. And if you can afford something like this, it really saves you time. And I actually think also helps you money. Helps you save money because you actually get into the good school and then you earn the money anyways. If it's important.
Yeah.
So yeah. That's
yes, you understand. If you pay 1,500 and you get LBS versus working on your own and getting a lower level school, School of Economics, it's not the same life at the end. And Yunus did well, but we send people even to MIT. I have people who have studied in an unknown university in Belgium, and now we're going to study at MIT. I have same thing, unknown universities in Spain. We're going to study at Columbia. Yunus, you already have a great background. You understand? You speak many languages. You're international. You went to the SCP. You're well connected. So anyway, your life, whether you get Stockholm or LBS, you have the connections. Okay, let's put it that way. Okay, if you have a big name, it helps. Okay, but imagine that you say, I went to a university in Spain, in Sevilla, nobody knows my university, and I need a big name. Me, I have students who have been to unknown universities, who are strong in Spain, to unknown universities in Spain. They now study at INSEAD, MIM. You stand out, simply because they would have, strangely enough, when you send a CV with INSEAD, LBS, or MIT, they look at it and they interview you, okay? When you come from a university from Germany or from Austria or from France, they don't interview you. I have a funny story about a student who studied at Dauphine. Dauphine is a good management university in France. I'm sure that you have heard about it. And she told me,
Yes.
I came to see you, sir, because yesterday, the real story, okay? Her name is Ines from France. I went to BCG conference, okay? Since my best friend is a student at Sciences Po Paris, and she could not attend, she gave me the invitation, okay? So I came at the entry, okay? And they asked me where I studied, because they could see that I was not the person that they invited. Say, hey, look, I come from Dauphine University, I come from a good school as well. Okay, I'm not a Sciences Po graduate, but I come from Dauphine. Say, no, HEC, ESSEC, ESCP, Sciences Po, that's it. Okay, if not, you cannot get in. I'm not saying to get into BCG. I'm saying just to get into an info session for the BCG. Okay, you're far from being at the BCG. Okay, so she told me, you have my friend, Tamara, who is now working for McKinsey in the Emirates. Okay, she's also a Finn. She went to, by the way, to LBS. She did the LBS MIM. I want the same. As simple as that. Okay, I want a name that will open me the doors. You agree, Yunus? Okay, so now, of course, when me, I had the son of Mr. Arnaud. I was his coach. I sent him to INSEAD. Of course, imagine he took GMAT courses. Antoine, the guy who runs Fendi today. You imagine that he doesn't need to go to INSEAD, okay? But even someone like him, even the son of the wealthiest man in the world, needs this thing, okay? Because when he goes in a meeting, he says, Antoine went to INSEAD, okay? Which shows that I'm here also because I'm intelligent, not just because I'm the son of my father. So even if you're well connected, you need these names, okay? And by the way, if you check his bio, it's the first thing. Antoine is 47 years old, he's an INSEAD graduate. Second line, you see his degree. Second line, okay? So it's important, the degree. And people say, INSEAD, not bad. You agree? Okay? Same thing for Yunus. In 20 years, maybe he will be the CEO of a private equity fund. Yunus, ESCP, LBS. Not bad. All your life, you will have these two lines. You agree, Yunus? All your life, you will be. All your life, okay? So it's preferable to have ESCP, LBS, than ESCP, and then we'll see Stockholm School of Economics. Say, what happened to him? You wanted to have 1 year off to date Swedish girls in Stockholm? No, but basically, that's what it looks like. It doesn't look very serious. London? Yes, okay, he's a banker, he went to London, good. You understand? The perception that you give of yourself is very different. It's like, I don't want to be rude, but my son will go to ESADE, okay, or IE, good schools. It's okay, the guy went to Spain, he wanted to enjoy life, okay? So when you go to Paris, in a city where it rains all the time, or London, where it rains all the time, and you know, be ready for that, Yunus. They know that you went there because you're serious, not to enjoy life, because you wanted an experience, you wanted to improve in life, because you're ambitious. And that's something that you communicate. Okay?
Yeah, it's something I've also experienced myself. So, for example, I was in a spring league with UBS in London. I was the only German guy, and all the other ones, I think more than 50% of the people they took were from London School of Economics. So I knew that it was.
You know that you need a big name, okay? And unfortunately, in Germany, you have WHU that is somehow known, but you don't have very reputable business schools. You have WHU, ESCP, but this big thing, it's a French and a British and an American thing. These big names, these countries are strong into that. Germans are strong in something else that is probably more important, by the way. But we French, we British, we Americans, who are strong in building these big brands and making you believe that students who come from there are very good. teasing you.
Mhm.
Okay, you know,
All right, I
so
understood.
nice to talk to you. It was nice to have you there. I don't want to use more of your time. So are you done with the military service, or are you not done? Are you done?
No, I
Yeah,
still have my civil service, so I have 2 more months. It's super annoying, but I'm gonna, yeah, it's gonna be fine. 2 more months, and then I do my internship. I have 1.5 months of chill, and then I do, you know, the MFA.
Okay. Thank you very much, Yunus. It's a pleasure as usual to have you on board. And of course,
Of
we stay
course.
in contact. Have a good
Of
day.
course, and let me just say, I mean, let me just say, if someone, you know, wants to connect, or if you have follow-up questions, maybe I didn't think of everything I wanted to say here on the spot right now. For me, it's also not so easy. I mean, it's the first time I'm talking to people about my experience, to a big group of people. So if you have follow-up questions, just shoot a text, okay, on LinkedIn or whatever you want to do.
So I'm
And,
going to give you your LinkedIn. By the way, you see, once you have London Business School on your sync, there will be many people contacting you. You'll be surprised, Yunus. That there will be many people contacting you because they want to go to LBS, and they will say, okay, they will ask you.
yeah, and if
those
they come to
questions.
Hubert, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, no.
Yeah, if they come from Europe, yeah. Otherwise, you know, you have. I don't want to be rude, but you have many Indians usually who ask you. But if they come and they say, oh, yeah, and anyway, I will not bother you too much. You see, that's why we invite LBS, so that they come and so we save time, okay? And then attend webinars and then have your CV assessed by LBS. Huh? Okay? So it was very nice to have you on board. So I wish you a great time, okay? So I'm not going to say that you go to the south of France after what you said about France, but you know, Spain, Italy, it's not bad, but you know, at the same time, south of France, Biarritz or Nice, is not bad as well. Okay, and it's great. You love tennis. I will give you a, if you want to, I will give you a good place where Academy Moratoglu, where you can spend a great time when you love tennis. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.